to welcome everyone to the April 26, 2022 regular scheduled Portland City Council meeting in the Linda Hartlab Council Chambers. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, Lord's Prayer, a moment of silence for those protecting the serving us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Kelly Gagel. Here. Pat Hovis. Here. Beth Gilman.
Present.
Roseanne Hickman.
Present.
Richard Morgan.
Excused.
Margaret Phillips.
Here.
Jerry Tiroli.
Present.
Thank you. Council, you previously received the April 12, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Trolley. I have a motion by Ms. Phillips, seconded by Mr. Trolley to approve the April 12, 2022 regular meeting minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. The chair notes the certification is made regarding the compliance of the rules and notification of this meeting. Tonight we have a guest presentation. We have Josh Neese is here on behalf of the Ottawa County Health Department and Jerry Bingham, the Health Commissioner, to update on the epidemic and the pandemic to the epidemic.
Good evening. My name is Joshua Neese. I am the Director of Health Education and Accreditation at the Ottawa County Health Department. I've been in this role now since August of 2020 when Jerry was essentially promoted to the Health Commissioner, and then I was been in this role. So I've been part of the main COVID team throughout this entire pandemic. As far as health education and accreditation, my role has really been the social media aspect as well as our messaging and help coordinating as far as our clinics and whatnot. So I do want to describe a little bit about what we've done. Oddly enough, it's kind of crazy to think about this, but it's been 2 years. It has been a long 2 years since it was officially declared a pandemic in March of 2020. Since that day here in Ottawa County, we have lost, unfortunately, we've lost 145 lives. Seen 404 hospitalizations and 8,474 cases up to this point. There are many people who have been sick who are still experiencing long hauler syndrome. So that's something we're monitoring, and it's something most likely we're going to be dealing for a while regarding the symptoms and the after effects of COVID. However, there are a lot of things I do want to highlight as far as what we have done here in Ottawa County that we have a lot of things to be proud of. The health department, this is just the health department alone. This is not all of the COVID numbers or COVID vaccines, but the health department has given over 16,600 doses of the vaccine. And currently, and pretty much this entire pandemic, we have led Northwest Ohio when it comes to the number of people that received their first dose of the vaccine. Currently, we're at 64% have received the vaccine. We've provided over 9,000 home test kits. And in fact, in one instance during the holidays, we handed out over 1,000 test kits within 20 minutes alone. That's what the demand was like for COVID test kits throughout the holidays because it was so high. In 2021 alone, we took almost 20,000 phone calls that were COVID related within our department. I know there was a lot of talk throughout the pandemic regarding working from homes, and I know a lot of things were shut down, but that was one thing we are very proud to say is we did not close our doors once throughout this pandemic and change anything as far as the services that we do offer, unless it was mandated from the state. There were some changes to some of our programs, but we still kept them going. We just did that remotely, but our doors were still open the entire time. Recently, we began offering the 4th booster to anyone who is eligible. That would be anyone that's 50 and over, and anyone that would be considered immunocompromised, as long as it's been 4 months since your last booster. And I can tell you our clinics have been full since we've been offering those. We've been vaccinating, boosting anywhere from 40 to 50 people per clinic, and we've been holding at least 2 clinics per week. And we have been adjusting that appropriately depending on the demand for that as well. It does ebb and flow depending on people when they originally got vaccinated and boosted and going from there. The pandemic has brought several different spikes and different waves throughout this entire 2 years. It definitely looks quite like a roller coaster. We've got areas where it's been very high as far as our incidence rate, and then other areas where it's been very low, almost non-existent. It has had a constant presence though within the last 2 years, and so we're continuously monitoring that, and we will be monitoring that for a while. Currently we're seeing on average about 1 to 2 cases per day, which feels like it's virtually non-existent compared to a peak which was actually in January when we had multiple days of over 100 cases per day. And so our current incidence rate as of last Thursday, the state updates this on a weekly basis every Thursday, and our incidence rate was 49.4 per 100,000, which is considered in the low threshold as far as that goes. A couple weeks ago we were as low as 32 per 100,000. To put that in reference in comparison to where we were in the thousands during our peak. When there were a lot of restrictions in place last year, and the governor had essentially set a threshold of when we get to this threshold, we will no longer have restrictions. That was 50 as far as the incidence rate. So we are still technically under that we were last summer. So like I said, relatively right now it seems very low, but we're continuously monitoring that situation. The truth is we don't have a clear definition as to when we are going to consider this no longer a pandemic and move to an endemic stage. There's a lot of factors that are in play. There's a lot of decisions that are made not necessarily at our level, but at the national level and the state level as well. Some of those factors that are looking into those, why this decision is being made, is for analyzing the risk for reinfection as far as those who have experienced COVID. The availability and the efficacy of the vaccine, that is something that's continuously being studied and monitored at various different levels throughout our country. How long immunization works is something that is continuously being studied, as well as the emergence of additional variants or something that is more infectious. We were just finishing up our Delta variant at the end of November into December, and then we were hit with, we never even got to experience the low of Delta variant, and we were hit with the Omicron variant, which essentially created our most recent spike that was in January. And just as quickly as it rose, it dropped just as quickly as well. Within a matter of weeks, we were down, we were essentially down at the bottom of the peak, and we've kind of been leveled off there for the last several weeks, over actually the last couple of months or so.
Isn't there another variant out there that we're
So there is, yeah, the BA2, that was something I was going to talk about.
Sorry.
We are keeping, no, you're perfectly fine. We're keeping a close eye on that. The BA2 is a subvariant of Omicron. That is the subvariant that really was affecting China and parts of Europe. And it's actually the most infectious variant of all the variants we've had up to this point. The thing, though, is that with a lot of these infectious disease, over time, the variants may become more infectious, but they have a tendency to be weaker, and they're not as severe. And that is kind of the case that we're experiencing right now. It has been found, the BA2 variant has been found in our area, in the state of Ohio. The problem when it comes to how they sequence them is several weeks behind. So they monitor, they might sequence tests that were done, let's say 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they get the results of the sequencing now, and then they see, oh, 3 weeks ago we had, this is the percentage of the BA2 variant. And then as we continue, now next week they'll sequence, and we got 3 weeks behind, and then we see, oh, now we've had an increase in that percentage. They don't, at this point in time, we're just kind of trying to continue to monitor that. Our cases, like I said, are relatively low at this point. Does not seem to be severe, what we're experiencing right now. We're seeing very few hospitalizations and deaths at this point in time of the pandemic. So
What about the influx of visitors? Will that up our case, or how does that work for our numbers here?
So the numbers will not affect us directly because we count Ottawa County residents within our numbers.
Just the residents?
It's just the residents.
Somebody from out of town reports to the hospital with COVID, it
Correct.
doesn't go.
What happens is in our state database system is that we ask your residents. So there may initially be a little bit of an influx because we always double check those numbers, and it may initially come in as an Ottawa County case, but then it transfers jurisdiction, let's say from Franklin County or something of that nature, because that's where they live, based upon the data that we receive when they have the testing. Yes, that's a great question. So that's why we can't necessarily call it an endemic at this point in time officially, but we are treating it more of an endemic, meaning that it's here to stay. It's something that we're going to be dealing with for a while. I know at a national level, there's been a lot of talk in regards to treating COVID as if it is just another one of the respiratory illnesses that we already monitor on a seasonal level, such as influenza is something that we do treat that. It has the effects currently of a Class B infectious disease, which is only typically reported when it comes to hospitalizations or deaths. However, that could change. That's one thing about the pandemic. That's one thing about COVID is it has been, it's not predictable yet. The more time comes, the more data we will receive, the more predictable it will become, and that's when it's essentially going to move officially to an endemic status.
I hate to keep bothering your
You're
train of
perfectly
thought.
fine. That is what I'm here for.
But there's so many things that are coming to mind. Okay, they're thinking of treating it like an influenza. But influenza doesn't have long COVID. It doesn't have the heart effect. It doesn't have the, so how are they going to be able to justify that?
So influenza does have lasting health implications.
It does?
It does. It's just not, there are different variations of how we treat influenza now. And that was the difficulty with COVID early on, is we did not know what it was going to be like. That's why it was, everything needs to shut down, because we need to try to limit the spread of this now so we can learn more about that. And that's the thing that we have. When it comes to influenza, we've got years and years of data in regards to that and how we treat that. You've got things such as Tamiflu, and you have regular over-the-counter medications that can severely limit how that affects someone's body. We have those actually are in the process of being rolled out now within our that are over-the-counter medications and things of that nature, but it does take time to get to that point. And so that's what I'm saying is it's still technically, it might feel as if right now COVID is over, and we're excited about that because there are things that we can focus on outside of COVID that are just as important, but we're always keeping an eye on COVID as at this point in time. And we're going to be keeping an eye on COVID for quite some time, just to see.
Let me go for the fourth one.
Bring it
Okay,
on.
in your opinion, you know, we get a flu shot every
Mhm.
year. Are they working on do you believe, in your opinion, they're working on a COVID shot that goes along with that flu shot that we would get every year? Or is there talk of doing that?
There has been talk of something along those lines.
But it would have to be awfully strong, because I've had 4 shots already, you know.
Yeah, understand.
So it would-
And that's why we're constantly, and when I say we, I'm not necessarily saying that we as a health department are.
Right, right.
We are looking at the data and the studies that are being done on the national level in regards to those shots. And that's really the message that I want to convey here today, is that we've been here alongside you guys this entire time, doing everything we can to try to be as open and transparent about all of the data and everything, and we don't plan on stopping that in regards to that. So that's what we are getting direction from the state in regards to the shots and who's eligible and all that type of thing, because we are approved through the state to be able to get the vaccines and whatnot. So we have not gotten any guidance specifically in regards to they're going to combine it all into one super shot or super booster every year. I can see that though as a potential long term. I'm not saying though that by the winter of 2022 we're going to have that. It's hard telling, to be quite honest. What we're really looking at right now is trying to get, I can tell you right now, influenza is predictable. I can tell you essentially in October, we're going to start spiking, and then by the time of February, it's going to start raining off. That's because we've got years and years of data when it comes to influenza, and we can try, and also with other areas of the global effects that it has, we're able to predict it a little bit more. Right now, we just don't have enough data long term as to, and so that is why it's still considered a pandemic. We are super happy to be essentially on the back end of this roller coaster, or at least that's what it appears at right now. But we're still running numbers multiple times a week to keep an eye on it. We might not be posting them. We might have gone to more of a cadence of a weekly posting. But I'm typically the one that runs our numbers and makes sure that it's as accurate as possible. And I'm still doing it at least 2 or 3 times a week, depending on the situation. What we do know is that vaccines do work. The length of time, that's what is still being monitored. That's what's still being studied. Vaccines absolutely are effective in reducing the illness. Masks and social distancing, whether we will like them or not, whether they were uncomfortable or not, they were still effective in regards to slowing the transmission. But that's a choice that we can make as far as protecting ourselves. And we support that we have the choice. Not that it's mandated, but we support the fact that we have the choice to be able to do that. Staying home when we're sick is a huge tool that we have in reducing the transmission. If you're sick, stay at home. We also have home test kits. We have plenty of test kits still. The demand of that has gone down, but we still kept receiving our supplies. Reduced supplies, mind you, because we did not necessarily have the demand. But we have plenty of test kits still available, and I do want to offer that up. That if you have any questions or anything, we still have them. You can just walk into our office. There is no distribution times or anything at this point because of the demand. So we have plenty of kits available. And like I mentioned before, we have more advanced medical care, and we have more knowledge on how to treat COVID at this point in time than we did 2 years ago. The other tool that we have, and I'm not sure if everyone is aware of this, is as odd as this sounds, we have the tool that we've actually been monitoring wastewater, as making sure that we can see the rise or the fall in COVID in the wastewater. Actually, oddly enough, wastewater is a very early precursor as far as rising of cases within our area. And we are gracious enough that not all wastewater treatment plants have been able to get on board with that program, but ours has. We monitor not only here at the city of Port Clinton, but we also Clinton Bay is another one that we monitor as well. And we get notifications anytime that those are elevated levels. So like I said earlier, as I close, I do not have any further information to add other than, like I had mentioned, we've been here throughout this entire pandemic, and we do not plan on stopping. Anytime you have any questions regarding how to handle anything within your offices and in the public, questions regarding events and ways that we can be as safe as possible throughout this pandemic, we are open to answering questions you would have.
Josh, I have one for you.
Absolutely.
And I do want to say for these guys, him and Jerry were great with us. That we had some cases within the city. I would call and say this is a scenario, and they would point us in the right direction. Mm-hmm. Following up with that, and I appreciate their efforts, and they've done a tremendous job in my opinion. Could you talk a little bit about the quarantine? The CDC guidelines, are we still following that? That's what I've been still going with. Have they been adjusted or changed?
They have not
recently?
been adjusted.
Okay.
Okay, we are still following the quarantine
and still with the
guidelines.
booster shot as,
Yep.
as if you haven't had that, then you should go
Yes.
home.
And we have that information on our website. Easily
Now, I've got a
available
copy of that. I just making
Absolutely.
sure it has not changed because we've had some other individuals here at the city that were in close contact.
Yep.
And they masked up because they were in the right protocol, and that's how we handled it. And I think that's still the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you were exposed from our standpoint here, we ask you to, if you work, you're going to wear a mask for that 5-day period. If you have symptoms or feel sick, then obviously, like he said, you go home. If not, we don't force you to test. We suggest that you probably should test if you've been around it. And we've had that recently, and that's how we've handled it. So I just want to make sure it didn't change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
Not
you.
a problem. What's nice about the at-home test kits is it's a piece of mind if you are experiencing
Absolutely.
symptoms. So for example, if you're anything like me, anytime this weather changes, everything acts up.
Yep.
Absolutely. I get clogged up and my eyes get watery and whatnot. And I can almost predict to the week when it's going to happen. The nice thing about the COVID test kits is it allows us to rule that out. Anytime anyone's experiencing symptoms, we recommend getting tested just because it does help reduce the risk of vaccines, especially when you're working close quarters with other people. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
The latest booster is strictly 50 years old or older, correct?
Correct, or it's immunocompromised.
But not the other complicating factors that were deemed eligible in earlier rounds, is that correct?
I believe those are considered immunocompromised as well.
Oh, that's the same?
Yes, yes. So what I would recommend,
I'm in.
and so what I would recommend is reach out. You can always contact our director of nursing. She would help guide you as far as that goes. When you do sign up, they'll ask you those qualifying questions
Okay.
specifically, and let you know whether you're eligible.
I will, off of that booster he's talking, is it Pfizer and Moderna, or,
Yeah,
so you have to pick the right clinic to go to?
we offer all of them.
Oh, whenever the clinic, you have both?
Correct.
Okay.
We have, essentially, when there were so many different types of vaccines, and it did become complicated, during the mass vaccination clinics, we did offer specifically because we got massive amounts of doses of specific vaccines, and it was important as far as that goes. More studies have shown that you are able to mix as far as Moderna and Pfizer, should you choose. Essentially, they are the same technology, more or less. But we reduced our clinics to just one COVID clinic, and we offer any of the vaccines that you would
Gotcha.
want. Yeah, so I believe we still offer the J&J, should you choose to have the J&J.
That's good that we can pass that on if
Correct.
people ask. Thank you.
Pediatric vaccines, all of that we have.
Okay.
And I believe, I have not verified this, but I know for a while, we were the only provider in the county that were offering all of those vaccines. I personally have not checked into some of the other providers we've had. I can't thank enough our community, the various partners that we had as far as our vaccination clinics when we had the mass clinics. The several different providers, because that is, we've had over 25,000, 26,000 people in our county that have been vaccinated. And I said, we've only done 16,000 of them. Only done 16,000. We could not have done that without the help of our community, hands down. There's been a lot of people that we've been able to help, and we were just excited to be able to have that opportunity to do that. Yes?
Any costs involved, since we're, as we seem to have a lot of things going on here?
Yes.
Costs for the boosters or anything?
What we have done now is we're billing for insurance. Okay, so there's no out-of-pocket cost for anybody when it comes to the vaccines, when it comes to the booster. If you do have insurance, we will bill your insurance. If you do not have insurance, we will give you the vaccine, and we will not bill you anything out-of-pocket.
Thank you.
And that's mainly for administrative fees. Yes?
With the fourth booster, right now you said it was 50 or older or immune compromised. Is it going to be like the other three, where eventually you'll get it younger and younger?
Yeah. And what they're doing is those parameters are set at the national level when they look at where immunity is starting to wane over time. Someone who is younger tends to have a stronger immune system and doesn't necessarily need the booster within a shorter amount of time frame. That's just the science behind that, and that is why they put those parameters in place. So that's why I recommend, if you feel that you are eligible for the booster, contact your medical provider, or you can contact our office and speak with those that administer the vaccine, and they'll be able to help you as far as those specific details. These questions are great, by the way. That's what I'm here for.
Anyone have any further questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming and
Thank you.
explaining.
No, I didn't have any
You're
more
more
questions.
than welcome.
Jerry, you're on.
Yeah.
You took everything.
I do have a card. I do have a business card if anyone else wants to. Thank you.
And you are more than welcome to stay, but you don't have to stay for the rest of our meeting. We understand that if you'd like to leave.
Yeah,
Thank
You guys have a
for
great night.
coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks, Josh.
No public comments. We'll move on to executive officer reports. Tonight, council, there is one new ordinance. It is number 11-22. That will go to just 3 reads and no committee. And the new resolution 22-4. That will go to 3 reads and no committee. That is the contribution to the American Legion. Mr. Philo, I'm sure we'll talk about that during his time. That's just, we have done that every year. We're just ahead of the game this year, getting it out to get the total 3 reads. Thank you, Mr. Philo, for that. Make sure everyone files your ethics paperwork. Look at your deadlines to see when it's due. You should be getting some notifications. I know we're a ways away, but I'd like to wish everyone a happy Mother's Day. When we come back, it'll be after Mother's Day. And that is all I have. The mayor's not here this evening, but Mr. Colston.
Yeah, Mr. Colston. I'm just going to read it, I think. So, as you are all sitting in council meeting, I'm sitting in the pack watching my granddaughter's first grade spring play. Now, I know you thought you wouldn't get a mayor's report, but you were wrong. Many in this room were part of the crowd of 170 people in attendance last Thursday when the Port Clinton Chamber in Main Street held their annual dinner. Several individuals and businesses were recognized for their fine accomplishment. The event was held at the Jet Express terminal. I will list he's got the awards listed, so I will do that rather quickly for you. Outstanding Citizen was Abby Fox. Beautification Award, Jolly Rogers. Lighthouse Fisherman's Wharf. Outstanding New Business, Brick House. Ambassador of the Year, Crystal Peterson. Business of the Year, the Arts Garage. The Main Street Awards went to Business of the Year, Northern Exposure. Volunteer of the Year, Individual, Jan Gluth. Volunteer of the Year, Business, Frederick Agency. And Revitalization Award, Rich Kokinda and the Brick House. Monday, Mr. Colston and I attended the TMACOG annual meeting held in Perryford. Thanks to COVID, this was the first in-person event in a few years. Rotary Club Pizza Challenge. I want to congratulate the PC Rotary for another successful pizza challenge. I was given the opportunity to again serve as a celebrity judge. I'm not sure my tag of celebrity was granted as I'm the mayor or because I'm an avid pizza eater. The beach light is traditionally activated on May 1st. However, with last weekend's forecast, we did do it last Friday. It was a good move because there was a lot of people over on the beach, and he didn't say this, I'll add it, there were some crazy people out there swimming in 50-degree water. The walkway project is progressing. Concrete is being poured. They're on target for the 20th of May completion. Let's hope the weather holds out. Yet another reminder to citizens, don't be a grass hole. Refrain from blowing and putting your grass clippings in the street. Citywide cleanup was this past Saturday. It was very well attended. On several occasions, the wait was over an hour to unload your items. It was double lines. It was crazy. People didn't come back later and throw stuff around, so that was good. Congrats to Eagle Scout candidate Nate Mellett. Nate's project was the design, construction, and installation of bat houses throughout Port Clinton, in addition to installs in several private properties in the area. Bat houses were placed at Waterworks Park, Lakeview Park, and Portage Park. Mom update. The concert schedule is coming together nicely and should be ready for public release in a few weeks. Last week, Main Street sent invoices to downtown businesses for their share associated with entertainment. The north half of the 100 block of Madison Street will be blocked beginning on May 15th. Hope the tables be ready for the following weekend, and of course entertainment will start on Memorial Weekend. As of this morning, a total of $25.20 has been raised for the Mile for Dollars campaign to support the 4th of July. That's 1,260 feet, or just shy of a quarter of a mile. Just a reminder, May 1st is decision day for the fireworks. Donation may be dropped or mailed Port Clinton Chamber at 110 Madison Street. Make checks payable to PC Chamber Foundation with the memo fireworks. The biggest week in American birding is set to return to the area May 6th through the 15th. Organizers are expecting tens of thousands of people to attend this event. Although centered on Maumee Bay State Park, expect to see bird watchers in and around Port Clinton. And that would be his report. The last thing he had on here to talk about is we have had some inquiries about the concession stand. We're moving forward and working with Mrs. Shanker on that. And I will be talking to Mrs. Hickman after this meeting about some things coming up with that. And that will conclude the mayor's report.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Colson filling for mayor? Okay, we'll move on to the auditor's report.
Thank you, Madam President. Council, before you, I distributed this background memo and resolution 22-4, as I try to do with any legislation coming out of our office. I try to provide that background piece, just like I did with the budget. Provide some of the history. The $500 figure is typically what council has expressed through a resolution for years past. There was also Mr. Colson's recommendation for this year as well. No need to wait all 3 readings. I've recently learned that resolutions aren't necessarily subject to the same 3 reads like ordinances are, since it just expresses the sense of council. So typically that's done before Memorial Day weekend, so we can get out a check to the organization so that those benefits are realized. Also before you is the the financial report for March of 2020. I apologize for the delay as I was absent at the last council meeting. But you'll be seeing, now that the end of April is upon us, you'll be seeing one for April 2022 coming up shortly next week, or likely at the next council meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I think financially everything is on track, and I wouldn't raise any red flags at this time. Yes, sir.
Mr. Velo,
Yeah.
last council meeting, you weren't here. We had a young lady in from the Ottawa County Family Advocacy.
I heard.
You heard about that?
I heard some.
Is there any help that we can give them through the Rescues Act? And what process do we need to do that?
Mr. Colson brought this up to me. I would tell council that my first recommendation would be the budget included $3,000 for council donations, similar to how the mayor has a donation line item for $2,000. The ordinance 6 that approved the appropriations for this year included $3,000 budgeted for whatever council deems to be a donation. Oftentimes, donations are things like tree plantings, or if someone passes away in the community and we provide flowers or some other financial support in honor of someone's legacy here in the city. I could point you in that direction. That $3,000 is yet to be touched. American Rescue Act funds, we have just over $219,000 that have been appropriated. That after appropriations and what's been already expended, which are 2 things. One is the new ambulance for the fire department, and one was the sewer department purchase, a large industrial screen early at the beginning of the year. And actually the American Rescue Act requires a filing by April 30th, which I'll be doing reporting on those 2 activities. That's a requirement from the Treasury Department. So that's the amount of Rescue Act funds that are available to the city. I would urge caution about using American Rescue Act funds for
that.
Strategic city needs, and I know that Mr. Colson has ideas on what may be coming down the pike. We also have another allocation coming this year that we would have another 2 years to expend, I believe. So we're trying to be judicious on where those funds go, but obviously we obey the will of council.
And I'll speak to, we're talking about trucks and those kind of things and all that stuff that we've been in much needed, and you guys have all agreed. So that's kind of where we are going with a lot of those funds.
Okay.
Mr. Belo, the $3,000, the discretionary fund from council, could some of that money be donated to it? And not the whole thing, but a portion of it donated to the, I forgot what it's called now, Mrs. Rose Group.
Those funds, like any appropriated fund, council ultimately decides where dollars go in terms of expenditures.
It does not have a clause on it that says it must go for something else?
No, I would think that you could advise me to write a purchase order for you guys to do that. Would that be the proper channel there, Mr. Belo, I would think? If that's what you so choose to do. Tell us what Mr. Beal and myself which fund you want. Obviously, if it's a donation fund, I would write it up accordingly and do it that way.
That would be the easiest way, wouldn't it?
That's your decision, but yeah, he's given you the guidance of where you can get those funds out of.
By motion, can I do it?
I don't know by motion or not, I'm just bringing it up.
That's what I
That
was
would
just
be,
gonna ask.
that, I would assume you would have to do something along those lines and direct the Director of Safety and Service to write a PO for this amount of money? Is that what you think, Gabe? What's easiest?
I would recommend thinking about it now that you have the answers. I can tell you, so everyone on council knows, no one from council approached me since the last meeting about this specific item, so I'm happy to answer questions now, give you some guidance and ideas.
Mrs. Hickman?
I think, have we done anything like this in the past? Donated to a specific organization out of those funds designated for city council?
So
That
that's,
you could ever recall?
the city council donations line is new this year, so I thought it would
Okay.
be equitable to provide council the same small discretionary or symbolic fund that the mayor has. So that part of it was new.
What did they have before, Mr. Velo? Did they have
Nothing.
no incidentals?
Incidentals.
They had incidentals, right, so that's where the other money would have came out of, and I don't ever remember taking any out for any of those things.
I would, if you're talking, Mrs. Hickman, about donation to organization, the city essentially donated the art garage to what's now the art garage. I point to that as the most recent example. Not a financial, it wasn't a check written.
Right.
I would describe it that way.
I agree.
I think we really, I'm trying to be very cautious how I say this. I think that if we start down this road, we're going to set a precedence for future organizations coming to the city and asking for a donation. You don't believe me, Jerry?
No,
I do, because I'm thinking now, Compassionate Friends, we need money. I could come to the city for that.
But this is
FOPA.
for feeding the kids, I mean, it's where, I guess my heart lies, is helping feed the kids. We heard her speak, they don't have the funds to carry through the summer. That's where I lie.
Possibly what, like, now that council has the information, why don't you take this and think about it? If any of you have questions or want to meet with Mr. Buell, I'm sure he would meet with you. Question, concerns?
And we don't, not to interrupt, Madam President, Jerry, we don't know the status of funding. She did mention there were some other avenues that they weren't set on yet.
I understand that, I just asked if there was something we can do to help this,
Yeah, I
this
agree
group out, to
100%.
I
feed our
understand.
children.
I do.
that
I
are hungry.
understand.
Mr. Buell?
Madam President, since Rescue Act funds were brought up, I would say the city's in receipt of Rescue Act funds, so is the county, and so is the school system. So if somebody wants to look for available Rescue Act funds, there are multiple entities that could provide that. And I would note ones that are, whose mission is more aligned with what this project is described as than the city's, in the city's jurisdiction. Obviously, there's more that we do that's more than, providing municipal services. So I would just add that for discussion.
Just a question for Mr. Tiroli. I was under the impression they still had funding for food if you went on site to eat all the time. The funding she was talking about that, and I'm asking, I may be wrong, the funding she was asking about was the grab and go that people could go. But they do offer that at their building every single day for the funding, is the way I understood it.
They don't have the sites though.
Ms. Gillen, am I wrong?
It's either or.
Right.
They have but they have funding for the on-site, I thought she said.
Only if they go through that process to get that funding. That means that if a child
That's right.
was to walk off the site with an apple, they'd have to grab it out of their hands.
Correct, but I'm
Right.
asking the question, if a child wanted to go eat, because I agree with Jerry that kids need to eat, okay? If they walk over to that site, they could sit there and eat lunch and have food, is that correct?
They don't have that funding yet. They would have to apply for that
I
funding.
thought she said they did, that's why my
I
confusion.
think
That's what I
they,
thought.
I think they have to
don't
apply
know.
for the
For
funding.
the sit-down part.
That's what I took from the meeting, and I could be very wrong, that's why I brought it up to ask the question.
Hey, what?
And
in the minutes it reads, well, the video, which is available on YouTube, you can read it here again, is based on, they chose not to go that route because of the protocols and the guidelines they have.
Exactly.
It's available, but they chose not to. Not that it wasn't available to them.
I don't recall what their reasoning was for
Because of
not.
the protocol and the guidelines that they had. They didn't want to be basically told how they run it.
Because the
It would
parents
be
would have to
handheld.
take the kids there every single
It
day
would
for
be
lunch,
handheld.
and the kids could not leave with food. But if they,
No grab and go.
like no grab and go, you could not leave the physical site with food. And for, like for example, for a child who was further away, the parents would have to drive them every single day for lunch there.
Isn't that how it started?
Yes.
So I guess if they,
It was a program where it was a summer lunch program, the kids were on site, they did an activity, they did a craft, they had a meal, yes, that is originally how it started. It has grown exponentially, the amount of kids they're serving, and I don't know if there's constraints with how many you can have in a space, I don't know. all the
For the
constraints.
minutes from that last year that I have right here, it basically is COVID, when COVID happened, all those guidelines were stopped, and there were no guidelines. They could do what they had to do to be able to comply, and they received funding. Now that COVID is not gone, but we're not where we were, they're reestablishing the guidelines with the protocols required. She doesn't want to go that route because of all the paperwork and other various things that she has to follow. She would rather go the route where she can hand children a bag of food and not have the restrictions of them not having it only on site.
And there's nutrition restrictions
Yes,
too, like you
correct.
can only serve certain things, it's a lot more, I mean, you know how government works.
Sure. Thank you for the explanation. Appreciate it.
But
Madam,
I appreciate Mr. Bealow pointing out there are rescue dollars at different organizations, like the schools. I just wasn't
And-
thinking about
obviously, there's probably more that I would need to learn. But I'm happy to personally match any donation that individual members of council or anybody who works for the city wants to make to give to that organization. I think that's a viable route as well. And avoid use of city funds for it. But I'll put that offer out there.
and Ms. Rowe also stated that Sherrod Brown had a bill that I believe $49 at the time. That's still out there, to once again waive those restrictions. So that's still out there. I don't know if that's going to go anywhere, but she did indicate that as well. And I suppose if she cannot raise the money, they could still probably go back to the other route.
that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Madam
Thank you.
President? Yes. I move to add the financial report to correspondence. Okay, did I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hickman. I have a motion by Mrs. Spielman, seconded by Mrs. Hickman to add the financial report for March 31st, 2022 under correspondence. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very
And I
much.
would like to say, I really like this because it makes sense to me. These are really well done, thank you. Even me, as a person who hates math, I can make sense of this.
Thank you, Matt. Madam President,
Yes.
another item.
Yes.
I believe at the last council meeting, council approved an ordinance authorizing us to go after the police cars, financing and to buy it from a vendor. Bauman Auto Group out on 53 was named. Unfortunately, the police chief tells me that that has since fallen apart and the vehicles are not available. He's pursuing an alternative vendor, one who's apparently on the state schedule for 6 Explorers, 4 Explorers as alternatives, as they could be available, is what I'm told. As such, as to avoid any concern about the state auditor digging the city or my office, that we didn't have authorization to look at somebody other than Bauman Auto Group, we would likely need to have an emergency meeting, a special meeting next week to approve, when I'm told, the same terms, just with a different vendor named. And once I get that, the quote from police chief and Mr. Colson will get that worked up, and the law director has to weigh in as well, and we'll get that crafted for your hopefully expeditious review and approval next week. Our current financing offered through U.S. Bank, which was named in the ordinance at the previous meeting, is valid up until May 6th. If we go beyond that, we'd have to start over. The interest rate may go up, it may not. Ideally, you could have everything needed from this alternative vendor. That's the rate limiting step now, is getting a quote from this alternative vendor for the Explorers. And then we can bring something to you to through, hopefully next week before the 6th. So I leave Madam President to coordinate, see availability for anybody to pass. Obviously, that can only be done if a certain number of members are here to vote and to vote yes. So I'll leave you with that, but I'm happy to answer any questions about the matter.
Does anyone have questions for Mr. Wheeler?
Did you want to set up a meeting and say for the next Tuesday?
I think we need to wait for some more information. Is that,
Or
I don't want, yeah, I'd rather not have you schedule a meeting now and yet we're still with our hands up in the air without the information needed for you to act.
okay.
So if you'd be nimble, we'd really appreciate it. I'm sure the police department, the police chief would really appreciate it because obviously this is a priority for him. Mrs. Schenker.
Is there still a 42-month wait on the Explorers
For
for
what?
building?
There's not that much of a wait.
Oh,
There
40, I'm sorry, 42 weeks, not 42.
There should not be that much of,
Sorry, 42 weeks.
It's possible.
I apologize.
We'd have
With
that
the
meeting
police-
next.
he will have a better idea when he gets a quote. He will have that information for
Okay,
us.
thank you. I was just curious.
It sounds like the original plan, the 6 Chargers, which he spoke to the virtues of the Charger, because I remember Mr. Gangle asked, why Chargers versus Explorers? And he talked about that when we were next door at that meeting, is because that they would be available now. There's not apparently the supply chain problems so far downstream that it's affecting Bauman's ability to even order and provide any certainty for potential buyers. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Council.
Treasurer's report.
Yes, the bed tax year-to-date collected amount has been $22,864.02, which represents approximately 9% of the what we would like to collect. And for dock tax, $6,475, which represents roughly 23% of what we're hoping to collect.
Thank you. Any council have any questions for the treasurer? Seeing none, we'll move on to law director's report.
Thank you, Madam President. We have an ordinance that is up for its 3rd reading. That is ordinance 8-22. I know the Safety Service Committee met today, I believe, maybe 3rd time on this ordinance, and they'll be making a recommendation to council. I did attend, I believe, 2 of those meetings, and Chief Scott attended one of those meetings. And I do want to relay the meeting Chief Scott attended. He did indicate that he felt that that ordinance may not be necessary at this time due to reviewing what the city of Port Clinton had in our codified ordinances. Again, we have a discharging firearms ordinance in our codified ordinances, which would cover air guns, which would cover the splatter guns, because they are defined as air guns under the revised code, and then also under our codified ordinances. And then also, as we're seeing more information come across from other cities and other areas, I know Ms. Phillips can speak more to this. Other areas are charging, 1, they're charging kids with discharging firearms, and then 2, they're charging with what happens after you discharge the firearm, for example, with assault, criminal damaging, criminal mischief, things like that. So I know that he's not here tonight, so I just wanted to just echo his statements from not tonight's meeting, the previous meeting he attended, and I know the Safety Service Committee has additional information on that as well. That's all I have, Madam President.
Thank you. Move on to supervisor's reports. Mr. Colston, anything additional?
No, I think I'm good after that.
Okay. And we'll move on to committee reports. Mrs. Hovis, Finance? Nothing tonight, Madam President. Thank you. Environment and Public Works? Mrs. Hickman?
Nothing tonight, Madam President, thank you.
Safety Services? Ms. Phillips?
Thank you, Madam President. We met before this meeting, and we had another discussion. This was the 3rd full SNS meeting for us on this. We took a serious look at this and discovered that much of it is covered on what we have already, so we do not need to add anything additional, which might actually cause problems with things that already are on the books. We, though, as a group, voted earlier today to not support this particular ordinance and regarded it as not being necessary and could be counterproductive. Our vote was 3-0 to ignore it or refuse it or whatever you want to call it. And we think that we can handle it. And again, person in Perkins Township actually was filed for assault, a child. So I know that they have their laws on the books. I'm sure we already have them as well, so we should be good.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Phillips? Okay, economic and community development, Mrs. Gilman.
We have nothing, we do have a meeting tonight after this.
Thank you. Okay, under correspondence, we have the text amendment to Port Clinton Fence Ordinance Letter, City of Port Clinton Planning Commission / Board of Zoning Appeals, Safety and Services Committee meeting minutes from April 12, 2022, and the financial report from the auditor as of March 31st, 2022. Do I have a motion to approve the correspondence as stated?
I move to approve the correspondence as stated.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Gangle. I have a motion by Ms. Phillips, seconded by Mrs. Gangle. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. The correspondence are approved as presented. We will now move on to readings of ordinances and resolutions. We have ordinance 8-22 under third reading. So will the clerk please read by title and summary only ordinance 8-22.
Ordinance number 8-22, an ordinance amending chapter 549 of the Port Clinton Codified Ordinances, regulating weapons and explosives and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Does council wish to take any action as to ordinance 8-22?
Madam President?
Yes.
I move we adopt ordinance 8-22.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Discussion?
As Ms. Phillips mentioned and as Dina mentioned, I'm moving to adopt this, but we are not in support of this, but I understand we need a vote on the ordinance, so we recommended that this is, it was 3-0 that we do not support this ordinance for the reasons stated tonight. Chief Scott was not in support of it. We already have stuff on the books to address assault, reckless operation, all those things, so.
And we're worried that we might weaken what we already have by divesting some of this into another law.
But we do have to act on it, so.
Thank you.
That's it, Madam President.
Any questions by any members of council? Okay.
Why did we let it go to third reading? I mean,
Because
Just-
we've been needing to make
It's
sure that we
right, right.
understand it.
It was
Okay,
a,
all right.
it came out quickly.
Just
There
we
was a
all
lot
learned.
going on in the community and we needed to learn more information about it.
Okay.
So after the first reading, we had a meeting on it, I don't know if it was after or before, and heard a little bit about how it came about, not understanding the whole situation. I mean, this was something going on in the community and it's going on all over, and so, but after hearing from the chief, hearing more information about it, it is, I don't feel we need this ordinance. We voted 3-0 that we do not.
It's a learning experience for all of us.
I'm voting.
It's a learning experience for all of us.
And
Thank you.
Mr. Trolley, if I may, just chime in real quick. So some of the police officers were having, issues dealing with this, and the issues were coming in very quickly.
Right,
And
right.
very rapidly, and they were having a difficult time addressing the issues. And so, they came and requested, some type of legislation to, to
Right,
deal with
right,
these issues.
Right.
And so we put a plan into place of what we can do in the meantime, until legislation can be put into place. And actually, what we can do in the meantime has worked.
Right.
And so then meeting with the chief of police, we see that the officers, have taken the suggestions and the issues have almost resolved themselves.
Good.
And then Ms. Gilman, Ms. Phillips, and Ms. Hovis have really diligently reviewed this. We've done some research, we've gone to other cities, we've gone to other areas who've dealt with these issues, and it's really just taken some time to really get a good handle on this. So I think at this time, everybody's consensus, we have a good handle on it. And if things should get out of control in the future, we could maybe revisit the issue, but for now, I think we're okay, if that makes sense.
I've got to tell the council, I've had quite a discussion with my 12-year-old grandson about this. And he brought up some really valid points. He said, what about if we're on your property, Papa? How can he, you know, that's some pretty good questions for a 12-year-old about this. But he understands why this happened and the consequences of him using it, and he doesn't use it. So, thanks, Madam President.
Sorry, I have a question. So what are the suggestions that were given to the officers that they're doing now that they weren't doing before?
So for example, looking to other sections in the revised code, assault, you know, if it's criminal damage, criminal mischief, even looking to the discharging firearms section, going to talk to the parents, you know, suggesting other places children can use these splatter guns, like on private property, things like that, staying off the streets, staying off of 6th Street. That was one of the streets that, you know, the kids were on. Things like that, and it seemed to take effect where it's been working. I don't know if the prosecutor's office has gotten any charges, but I know the officers have taken, you know, more of a community approach, which they initially tried, but I think, like, for example, initially they tried saying, you know, go to Waterworks Park and do it at the park, but then the kids were shooting at city equipment. And someone called the police, or they went to Lakeview Park and someone called the police. So I think they've just been steering the kids more towards private property, and that's really been more effective.
Is this an opportunity kind of for maybe training for our police force in handling these types of issues going forward?
I think if there is that kind of training, it would be wonderful. Unfortunately, with COVID, I don't know what's out there.
Or I mean, just like a learning opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like it's a trend. You see more and more of these like TikTok trends that end up causing these mess, like Pokemon Go and all that.
Yeah. I think what was really good is that the officers saw the problem. They tried to work through it. They came across obstacles, and then they asked for assistance, got assistance, and then remedied some of the issues they had. And so, you know, in the meantime, we were trying to work on an ordinance, which then we decided we didn't need. So it all worked itself out, I think, for now, hopefully.
Oh, Mr. Vila?
Now, question just as a citizen who doesn't want to get hit by one of these things, after hearing the story when this was first brought up upon its first reading. So are the number of calls to the police department going down, and is it not a problem anymore? Kids discharging these weapons where they weren't supposed to?
The understanding we have is they are going down. That's the information we received. And from Ms. Gillum is that these kind of disintegrate in contact, so.
Well, and if they're shooting you, you can still call the police and they can still get the kids for something else. We don't need this additional ordinance and what it was doing. You know, if they're shooting you and it's assault and you want to do something about it, you know, you could still have that opportunity. The kids should not be shooting people that don't want to be shot.
Right.
Some of the behaviors still, but the impression we got is this is a fad, you know, paintballs, all these things that have come and gone, and do we need an ordinance every time something like this happens when we already have stuff on the books to address the behaviors that were the problem? So that's kind of where it was. But yes, I did bring one of the things in to show them, and I wouldn't want to be shot with it up close, but.
So my personal risk and the risk my mom faces driving down the street that she's not going to get pegged with this is less than it was two months ago?
Maybe. Maybe, but there was a juvenile that was arrested in Perkins Township for shooting
At a
people
Target.
in a Target parking lot.
Yeah, so.
And he was arrested.
And he was
The
arrested.
juvenile was arrested for that.
And, you know, the idea is that it is serious that, you know, if you get shot with one of these, it's not the fact whether you get hurt or not, it's the fact that you're getting shot with these. So it is still very serious. but we do have enough on the books where we can find something else to charge.
And our ordinance as it stands, they can be charged with what is it?
Discharging a firearm.
Discharging a firearm. I mean, if their kids are doing stuff like this, so, and that is on the books right now, as it is.
And that's in the revised code as well.
Any further questions, any further discussion?
I think we,
Okay. And we have a motion by Mrs. Gilman, seconded by Ms. Phillips to adopt ordinance 8-22. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Beth Gilman,
No.
Margaret Phillips,
no,
Roseanne Hickman,
No.
Pat Hovis,
No.
Kelly Gagel,
No.
Jerry Trolley.
No.
Okay, thank you. The motion was not adopted, did not pass by a vote of 0 to 6. Ordinance 8-22 is not adopted. We now move on to first readings. Would the clerk please read by title and summary only, ordinance 11-22.
Ordinance number 11-22, an ordinance to approve April 2022 replacement pages to the Port Clinton codified ordinances and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Does council wish to take any action as to ordinance 11-22 this evening? Seeing none, ordinance 11-22 will move to its second reading on May 10th, 2022. Would the clerk please read resolution 22-4?
Resolution 22-4, a resolution to appropriate funds for the purpose of decoration of graves, conducting memorial services, and otherwise engaging in activities appropriate for the celebration of Memorial Day 2022.
Thank you. Does council wish to take any action as to resolution 22-4 this evening?
Madam President, is it possible here that, since it's a resolution, we don't have to do 3 reads? Would it be easier if we did it now, so everything is not handled till the last minute?
That is up to council. If you would like
Do you
to
think it's possible?
waive the 3 required readings and take action this evening, that is up to council.
Well, then I'd like to waive the 3 readings.
Okay. I have a motion by Ms. Phillips to waive the 3 required readings as to resolution 22-4. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mrs. Hickman. Any discussion? I have a motion by Ms. Phillips, seconded by Mrs. Hickman to waive the 3 required readings as to resolution 22-4. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Gagel?
Yes.
Sorry, Mrs. I apologize. I'm gonna tell my husband. Pat Hovis?
Yes.
Mrs. Gilman?
Yes.
I'm so screwed. Roseanne Hickman?
Yes.
Margaret Phillips?
Yes,
Jerry Trolley?
Yes.
No.
Not today.
Thank you. Motion carries with a vote of 6-0. The 3 required readings are hereby waived. Does council wish to take any further action as to resolution 22-4?
Madam President, could we move to adopt this resolution?
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hickman. Any discussion? Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Phillips, seconded by Mrs. Hickman to adopt resolution 22-4. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Margaret Phillips?
Yes,
Jerry Trolley?
Yes.
Kelly Gagel?
Yes.
Pat Hovis?
Yes.
Beth Gilman?
Yes.
And Roseanne Hickman?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries by a vote of 6-0. Resolution 22-4 is hereby adopted. We move on to business from the floor. Mrs. Hovis.
Nothing to that.
Thank you. Mr. Trolley.
I talked enough.
Mrs. Hickman.
I'd like to wish all you moms happy Mother's Day. That is it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Mrs. Gangle.
My birthday is Monday. Nobody is required for gifts, but if you want to provide me, I request that they be lavish in nature.
That's good.
Ms. Phillips.
thank you, Madam President. I was at a meeting out of town night before last, and a lot of people were commenting on how nice Port Clinton looks, what a difference it is. And so obviously all this work that everybody's putting into this is having some effect outside of the city. These people were all from the west end of the county. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Mrs. Gilman?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to acknowledge there's a group locally in the area that's been pretty active even through COVID, 50 Shades of Purple. They have an event right now at the gristmill World Denim Day is tomorrow, so they're taking photos tonight to push that tomorrow. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. It's a great, to raise awareness about sexual assault. And I think it's fantastic what they've done through COVID as a small group. So if you have denim on or could throw it on, make it to the Gristmill. I'm sure they'll be there for a while tonight. And if not, we're denim tomorrow. Spread the awareness. Nothing else, Madam President.
Thank you. Mr. Holman, would you like to make an announcement about Arbor Day as a
She
reminder?
said it's going in schedule, Friday at 5:30 PM at the West End Park.
At West End.
Rain or snow, let her go.
What? Snow?
Yeah, thank you. Seeing no further business, I take a motion to adjourn.
Madam President, I move this August body adjourn.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Troy. A motion by Ms. Phillips, seconded by Mr. Troy to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Mr. Belo.
Do these formalizations on here?